Hello, Sexy Sassies, and welcome to another week of Sexy Sassy Pants. We are going to be starting the series that coincides with the first booklet of Feeding Your Sexy Body, which is this booklet here. And there's going to be 4 weeks in this series. So we're going to start talking about our bodies and different ways that we interact with our bodies, and it's going to be very different than what the normal mainstream things are that we hear. You've been bombarded with that enough. So my name is Dee Felgus. I'm a master level therapist. It helps if I can at least say that. And a lot of my work actually is based on women and their body image. It's so sad to me that I would say 98% of the women that I work with have body issues. I don't care what their size, shape, color, age, 98%. And here's what's really interesting. It's the flip for men. It's about 2%. Men are generally okay. You know, you might get, I need to lose my beer belly or whatever, but I mean, generally men are okay. Again, another reason that I want to get this out so that we can be working together as women to feel good in our skin. And our media and everything else around us does everything to tell us that we're not good enough, that we don't look good enough, that we're too old, that our skin color isn't right. And if you think about even all of the editing that we can do now, and seeing these amazing, beautiful women who are models of all sizes, shapes, and ages, which has gotten better, which is good, and they still go in and Photoshop the bodies of these women who have the most beautiful bodies to begin with. Why not just let us be who we are? So what this is not going to be about is me telling you what you're supposed to eat or not eat. That is overwhelming. There's tens of thousands of books on this and videos, as you know, telling you to eat this, don't eat that, eat meat, don't eat meat, be a vegetarian, don't be a vegetarian, and every weird, wacky thing in between. What I appreciate now, though, because I'm always doing research on this, is the fact that all the modalities in this are starting to come together, and what they're agreeing on is that we should be eating whole food. I like that. So what does that mean? They're all agreeing that eating, especially in America, a standard American diet with all of the fast food restaurants and things like that is not healthy. All of the processed sugar that we eat is not healthy. And so all I'm going to say about that is, however you decide to feed your body, try to do whole food. And we're going to have a whole discussion on this one of these 4 weeks that talks about ways to do some meal prepping and things like that, because that's the biggest thing I get is, I don't have time, or I don't have the finances to do this. And there's ways to do that, so that will come later. But today I just want to talk about your body and loving your body. And if you struggle with anorexia or bulimia, I would highly recommend getting some help with that one. It's tough, and there's just a lot of things going on. I don't need to tell you that, you know that. I'm going to be speaking more about just body image in general, which can be helpful. But for a lot of women, they're struggling with being overweight or feeling that they're overweight, and or just not being happy with their bodies. So one of the things I want to start off with is why, especially women who carry extra weight, why do you think that is? So most of the time you're going to get, you eat too much, you don't eat right, you don't take care of yourself, you don't exercise enough, you don't this, you don't that. What about the possibility that the weight that you carry is protection? So if you've had traumatic events happen in your life, if you have had someone bully you, or if you've had somebody tell you your body wasn't good enough, or if you were sexualized because you were perceived to be what our society calls the perfect woman, and so you're whistled at in different things. Sometimes women will put weight on so that stops. And so a lot of times our weight has to do with control and protection and safety. So if there's been some kind of abuse, we think that if we get bigger and we try to make ourselves not look attractive, we'll be left alone. And that can be for any of the other things I just mentioned above that too. So what's interesting with that is then how do we approach food? Some of us may choose to eat a lot of unhealthy foods and different things to either continue to gain weight or keep that weight up. And every time you try to do something about that, you stop it, it doesn't work, and it's because in the back of your mind is that, oh my gosh, I have to have this protection, and if you take that away from me, I'm not going to feel safe, I'm going to feel terrified. So it's important, if this is resonating at all, to find someone to talk to do some work on this, because you deserve to not feel this way. You deserve to feel safe in the world, and you deserve to get your power back, so whoever took that away from you can't have control over this anymore. So that's one of the big reasons. I also have, and I'm going to give a little bit of background just on my story on this and a few examples of some of my clients, because I work with so many that struggle with different things. So my family, my mom, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, we can go back generations and generations of overweight women, and I mean like obese women. And so with each generation, it has been carried down through that that's not okay, you're supposed to look a certain way. And I know my mom really struggled with that with my grandmother, and I heard stories. My mom said she could hear my grandmother throwing up in a bucket at night after everybody went to bed because she would binge and she'd try to hide it. And so then my mom got some really not okay ways of being with her body, and my mother was by all means not a large woman in high school, and yet she felt like she was. And then she got pregnant with me when she was 17. And my mom was kind of a yo-yo dieter, so she would be up and then down. I've never been that. I've just kind of carried extra weight or didn't. So my mom, when I moved back in with her after being in a foster home for 3 years, my mom was then, she would say, quite large. And I mean, she was a larger woman with a lot of body image issues. And that rolled down to me. And because she had it rolled down from her mother, and probably her mother from her grandmother. And how that looked was, I actually weighed about 130 pounds, 135 pounds. I'm kind of a stocky, short person. So, and walked a lot and was in good shape. But my mom saw me through her eyes. So whenever she was going to go to the next fat place or the next, drop your money every week place, I would go with her because I needed to lose weight too. So what I would do is I would eat and eat and eat and eat and eat the day of the first weigh-in. And I mean, eat a lot. And then I would go and weigh in with my mom. And then I would come home and I would throw it all up because I was sick. I wasn't bulimic or anything, but I would be so full. And then the next week I would lose like a bunch of weight because I didn't eat and eat and eat. She would get upset because she would lose a normal amount, and I would lose like 7 pounds, and I was young, so that was a lot. And then there would be issues around that, so I would feel guilty. So I would call myself the skinny fat, because even though I was not a large person, I always felt large because of what my mom would carry forward. And this is not my mom's fault, and her and I have done a lot of work on this. But that, I've heard that type of a story from so many women, that it comes down through the family line. That's a big deal. And how do we break all of those patterns? And all of the generational trauma around body image. So that is definitely one of the stories, and it, again, a lot of versions of this from many women. And then my mom, I don't even know how many years ago now, decades ago, she would yo-yo diet. She had a lot of anxiety. She'd go way down, then she'd go way up, and then she finally did take the weight off, and she's kept it off pretty much ever since. And it was interesting because at that time when my mom lost all of her weight, I ballooned up to, and I'm going to say ballooned up to because it was not normal, to the exact weight that my mother was at for many, many years. You can't even make that up. And I could not, no matter what I did, get below that number. It was so ingrained through our line and in my brain that I basically took it and I carried that for her for many years. And I had a lot of anger at her because of that. And I was afraid to talk to her about it. I'm sure some of you can relate to this. I was afraid she'd get upset and wouldn't understand it. And so finally in 2016, I remember it well. We were driving home and we had a great day, and I finally talked to her about how I felt. I talked to her about, she didn't know a lot of these things. She didn't know that I was throwing up afterwards. She didn't realize how it had affected me. And for a moment, she went into this place in the car of, now I messed that up, and normally I would try to rescue that, and I didn't that day. And it was amazing because she thought about it and I thought about it, and that's when I was finally able to start letting go of what story was going on in my head. That's the power that we have of what we hold in our mind regarding our body image. And after that day, I was finally freed from that. And so I want you to think about your story and the stories you've been told, the stories maybe you've carried, who you tried to protect when it comes to your body or what you put in your mouth or didn't put in your mouth. And sometimes I would just eat a lot of stuff because I could be funny about it and it would make people laugh. And I think back on how sad that was. I was just trying to get some attention to make people laugh. So I want you to think on that a little bit and see if any of that resonates and how that fits into your story with any of this. Here's another scenario that comes up more often than not, and this one is hard because women will constantly say it to me like I don't believe them, and that is they're doing everything so-called right? So they're exercising and they're eating a well-balanced diet, and by all intent and purposes, their weight should be going down, but it doesn't. It stays the same no matter what. Now I shared this. I was with one of the weekly weigh-in places, and I was like, I don't even know what to do with this. And I was told, eat more soup. Okay. Eat less food. Okay, I am eating exactly what you're telling me to. You must not be following the plan. I was following the plan. So everything that they said to me shamed me and made me out to be like I was crazy. I've had several clients say this to me, and they're like, you don't understand. I'm like, no, but I do understand it, and I get it, and I believe you, and I know this to be true. So if you're dealing with that kind of scenario, where you are really working it, and no matter what you do, so I want you to know, number one, I hear you, I get it, you are not alone in this. This is the power of the mind. This is the power of our mind. So I'm going to ask you the question, what are you holding on so tight to? Do some contemplating on that. Do some thinking on that. Because there's something going on. And I'm going to talk about the last thing today I want to talk about when we think about body image and how we perceive ourselves is this. This is very recent. So I have done a tremendous amount of work on on my body image. I do a tremendous amount of work with women. I do a lot of research, and I work through a lot of my own stuff. I have a lot of trauma from my past, and I've had to do a lot of work, and I've been around it. The way my family took care of things, if things were not okay, was feed us candy, feed us junk food. I mean, especially my grandparents, that's what they did. So I've worked through a lot of that. I love my body. Would I like to lose a few more pounds? Sure, for dance mostly, to make sure that I can move the way I want to move. But other than that, I'm good. So I had this relationship breakup a couple months ago, and I started to realize food wasn't tasting good to me. I didn't know what I wanted to eat. It was kind of weird. So, and I thought, well, what's going on? And I kept sharing with my mom. I'm like, Mom, I can't stop eating, and I'm eating so much, and why am I doing this again? And what is this pattern? And so we were joking one day about something. So this was totally random, and I wrote down what I ate for the day. So we joked ourselves into this. I wrote down what I ate for the day, and then I looked at it, and I looked at it again, and I saw that I was eating perfectly. And I don't mean like perfect as in we need to be perfect, but good, well balanced, just like I should be. And I thought, oh my God, my brain was telling my body that I was eating like 5,000 calories a day, and this was happening and that was happening. And so after all of the work I have done, I had that relationship end, and that was enough to trigger back an old pattern. I recognized it and I changed it, but my point is, I had to see that in black and white to go, what the hell? Wow. Okay. The power that our mind plays on us. And understanding that what I was doing was trying to use that to take a place to put my anxiety, basically. A distraction. So it's old. And I mean, any of you that have issues with food know this. We eat when we're happy, we eat when we're sad, we eat for this, we eat for that. And so sometimes I guess I didn't want to deal with my feelings. I mean, I did a pretty good job, but I was still, my best friend for most of my life has been food in some way, shape, or form, or some way, shape, or form. Whether it was positive or not positive, and that's what I was doing with this. But to see that in black and white, so I'm putting that out there because I really want you to take a look at where the connection is or disconnection is between what you're putting in your mouth and what your thoughts are that you're telling yourself around what you're putting in your mouth and how you feel about your body. Because that was the other thing. I thought I was gaining all this weight, and when I look in the mirror, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, well, I'm going to get on the scale. I hadn't gained a pound. But my eyes and my mind were telling me a different story. Probably wanted that protection again. So, I mean, obviously I work through that. I'm just putting that out because we never know when it's going to pop up. We get better at figuring it out. But that's going to be step 1 this week in this series of 4 is get really, really honest with yourself about where your feelings about your body come from and why they are here. What I want to leave you with today is this. When you get to a point where you don't care anymore, when you say, I love myself exactly the way I am, that's when you start to notice the changes. It's such a crazy thing because you're like, no, that is not possible. It's true. When you're living your best life and you're picking out clothes that just look great on you and you just feel good in it and everything about you feels good, and it's not perfect, but you're getting to feel empowered within yourself for who you are. It won't matter as much anymore. It's the strangest thing. So it's just something to think about. So that's what I'm going to leave you with for this week. And next week, we're going to be talking about some of the steps that we can start taking to start making some shifts and some changes toward what and how you want to feel, and how you can feel good and sexy and sassy and be who you are right now. So we'll start working on that next week. So until then, have an amazing, sexy, sassy week. I hope you write down some of the things we talked about. Start getting some awareness. Please write some comments if you want to. I mean, we're all in this together. Like I said, 98% of us deal with this. Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.